1557, Spain declared bankruptcy. They owned half the world's gold. They controlled trade routes spanning 4 continents. Their currency was the most trusted on earth, and they were completely, utterly broke. 40 years later, they declared bankruptcy again, and again, and again. 4 times in 4 decades while sitting on the largest treasure hoard in human history. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And here is what should make your blood run cold. Britain followed the exact same pattern 300 years later. The Soviet Union followed it 50 years after that. 3 global superpowers. 3 complete collapses. The same 7 stages, in the same order, every single time. And right now, in 2025, the United States has completed 5 of those 7 stages. This isn't theory. This is math. And the math says, we are next. Let me show you how this works. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Spain in 1550 was unstoppable. After Columbus opened the Americas, Spanish conquistadors seized the Aztec and Inca empires, the richest civilizations ever discovered. Suddenly, Spain controlled the Potosi silver mine in Bolivia, one single mountain that contained more silver than existed in all of Europe combined. By 1560, Spanish ships were hauling 200 tons of silver across the Atlantic every year. By 1600, over 400 tons annually. The Spanish real became the world's reserve currency. If you wanted to do international trade, you needed Spanish silver. King Philip II had more money than any human being in recorded history up to that point. So what did he do with it? Stage 1. Military overextension. Philip fought wars everywhere simultaneously. Against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against France, England, and anyone else who challenged Spanish dominance. He had military commitments spanning 4 continents. The cost was insane. By 1580, military spending consumed 60% of Spain's revenue. Not 60% of the budget. 60% of every dollar that came in went straight to the army. And here is the thing, they still couldn't win. The wars dragged on, costs escalated, and the silver, all that silver, started disappearing faster than it came in. Stage 2. Currency debasement. In 1566, Spain couldn't pay its bills anymore. They had spent everything. So they did what every failing empire does. They cheated. Spanish mints started mixing copper into the silver coins. A coin that was supposed to be pure silver became 50% copper, then 70% copper. The face value stayed the same, but the actual metal kept dropping. By 1600, a silver coin contained 5% silver. The rest was worthless copper. Merchants across Europe figured it out fast. They stopped accepting Spanish currency at face value. Prices exploded. The empire that controlled all the world's silver was experiencing hyperinflation. Stage 3. The debt spiral. Spain borrowed constantly, from Italian bankers in Genoa, from German banking houses in Augsburg, from anyone who would lend. And here is where it gets surreal. 1557. Spain declares bankruptcy. They default on all debts, restructure, promise reforms. 1560. Bankrupt again. 1575. Bankrupt again. 1596. Bankrupt again. 4 bankruptcies in 40 years, while Spanish galleons were still dumping tons of silver into Seville every month. They had unlimited money and still went bankrupt. How is that even possible? Because they stopped producing anything. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. This is the part people miss about Spain's collapse. The silver destroyed them. When you have unlimited money, you stop making things. Why farm when you can import French wheat? Why build ships when you can buy Dutch vessels? Why innovate when you can just spend? Spanish nobility considered work beneath them. Manufacturing collapsed. Agriculture stagnated. The entire economy became one giant import operation. All the silver that flowed into Spain flowed right back out to pay for Italian silk, French wine, Dutch goods, English wool. Spain became a conduit. Wealth passed through their hands, but none of it stayed. By 1620, Spain produced almost nothing. They were completely dependent on imports and completely dependent on silver to pay for it all. And then, the silver mines started to run dry. Stage 5. Social collapse. By 1640, Spain was falling apart. Crime exploded. Beggars filled Madrid. The best minds emigrated to France, England, the Netherlands, countries that were building things. Spain was left with bureaucrats, soldiers, and priests. A massive overhead consuming wealth, with no one creating it. Within 50 years, they lost Portugal, lost the Netherlands, lost control of the seas. The empire that once ruled the world became a secondary power, and they never, ever came back. Spain today is pleasant. Nice food, good weather, great beaches. But they are irrelevant. A regional country with a glorious past and no future. That is what happens when you complete all 7 stages. Jump forward 300 years. Britain, 1900. The British Empire controlled 25% of the world's land surface. They had 400 million subjects. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Every major contract was denominated in pounds. Every central bank held British bonds. London was the center of everything: finance, trade, power. And they were already following the pattern. Stage 1. Military overextension. By 1900, Britain had military commitments everywhere: India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Caribbean, the Pacific. They had to defend territory on 6 continents simultaneously. When World War I started in 1914, Britain faced an impossible choice: stay neutral and let Europe tear itself apart, or jump in and bankrupt the empire to win. They chose to fight. The war cost Britain $40 billion, equivalent to $1 trillion today. They borrowed massively, mostly from the United States. By 1918, Britain had won the war, but the creditor had become the debtor. They owed America billions. Stage 2. Currency debasement. The pound was supposed to be backed by gold, but the war drained Britain's gold reserves. They had shipped gold to America to pay for weapons and supplies. By 1920, gold reserves were half their pre-war level, but Britain tried to maintain the pound's value anyway. They went back on the gold standard in 1925 at the pre-war rate. The problem? The pound was overvalued. British exports became too expensive. Manufacturing collapsed. Unemployment exploded. By 1931, Britain couldn't hold it anymore. They abandoned the gold standard. The pound lost 25% of its value overnight. The global reserve currency had just admitted it couldn't keep its promises. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Britain never recovered from World War I debt. And then World War II started. Another $120 billion in costs. More American loans. By 1945, Britain owed more than their entire annual GDP. They had won both wars, but the empire was finished. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1947, Britain gave up India, the crown jewel, the source of wealth for 200 years. Gone. Over the next 20 years, they lost everything. Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean. By 1970, the British Empire existed only in history books. Stage 5. Currency collapse. In 1940, £1 equaled $4.03. By 1950, $2.80. By 1970, $2.40. By 1980, $2.30. Today, $1.27. The global reserve currency became a regional currency. Britain kept the nuclear weapons and the UN Security Council seat. But everyone knew the truth. They were a former power, a museum piece. The pattern had played out again. Soviet Union, 1945 to 1991. Let's go fast because this one happened in our lifetime. After World War II, the USSR emerged as a superpower. Nuclear weapons, massive military, control over Eastern Europe. They believed they were the future. Stage 1. Military overextension. The Soviets spent 15 to 20% of GDP on the military, triple what America spent. They had to match American reach everywhere. Afghanistan, Cuba, Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, Ethiopia. The cost was unsustainable. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. The Soviet economy stopped growing in the 1970s. By the 1980s, they were importing grain. A country with the best farmland on earth couldn't feed itself. Stage 3. Currency collapse. The ruble was never real. Soviet citizens used dollars when they could get them. By 1985, oil prices dropped and Soviet gold reserves were depleting. Stage 4. Loss of empire. 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany. Gone in a year. Stage 5. Complete implosion. December 26, 1991. The Soviet Union ceased to exist. 900 days from the Berlin Wall to total dissolution. No war, no invasion, economic implosion. A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed from internal economic failure. 3 times, same pattern, same sequence, same result. Now, let's talk about us. Stage 1. Military overextension. The United States has 750 military bases in 80 countries. We have troops deployed in 150 nations. We are committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines. Our military budget is $850 billion annually. That is more than the next 10 countries combined. And it is not enough. We are stretched thin. Equipment is aging. Recruitment is down. And we have commitments we physically cannot fulfill. If China invades Taiwan, Russia pushes into Poland, and Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz simultaneously, we cannot respond to all 3. We are overextended, just like Spain, just like Britain, just like the USSR. Check. Stage 2. Currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became pure fiat currency, backed by nothing except trust. Since 2000, the money supply has increased 400%. Since 2020 alone, we have printed over $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. We are not mixing copper into silver coins. We are just printing unlimited paper. The mechanism is different. The result is identical. Check. Stage 3. Debt spiral. The United States currently owes $36 trillion. That is 120% of GDP. Interest payments alone are approaching $1 trillion per year. We are now spending more on interest than on defense. We run deficits every single year. $1.8 trillion in 2024, during peacetime, in a growing economy. We are borrowing money to pay interest on previous borrowing. That is the definition of a debt spiral. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed until collapse. The USSR ran out of money. We are on the exact same trajectory. Check. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. America doesn't make things anymore. We design. We finance. We consume. But we don't produce. Our manufacturing base has been gutted. Shipped to China, Mexico, Vietnam, anywhere labor is cheaper. We import $800 billion more than we export every year. We are dependent on foreign supply chains for everything. Medicine, electronics, steel, even military components. Just like Spain became dependent on imports while silver flowed out, we are dependent on imports while dollars flow out. And just like Spain, when the money stops flowing, we are finished. Check. Stage 5. Social decay. Trust in institutions. All-time lows. Crime. Rising. Homelessness. Exploding. Drug deaths. 100,000 Americans per year. Fertility rates. Collapsing. Political dysfunction. Total. We can't agree on anything. Can't fix anything. Can't build anything. The best and brightest are checking out. The signs of decay are everywhere. But everyone pretends it is fine. Check. 5 stages complete. The Soviet Union made it to stage 5 before total collapse. So did Britain. We are not approaching the pattern. We are deep inside it. Stage 6 is loss of reserve currency status. That is when allies start diversifying. When global trade moves to other currencies. When dollars come flooding back home, because nobody needs to hold them anymore. We are seeing early signs now. BRICS nations developing alternatives, central banks buying record amounts of gold, China and Russia trading in yuan and rubles, Saudi Arabia accepting yuan for oil. The cracks are forming. Stage 7 is collapse, not slow decline. Sudden implosion. The Soviet Union went from superpower to non-existent in 900 days. Britain lost the empire in 20 years. Spain took longer, but the result was the same. When the reserve currency fails, when the debt becomes impossible, when the military can't be funded, it doesn't decline gracefully. It collapses quickly, brutally. And everyone who thought it couldn't happen here learns the same lesson every empire learns. It can. And it does. 3 empires followed this pattern: Spain, Britain, USSR. Each one believed they were exceptional. Each one believed they were different. Each one believed the rules didn't apply to them. They were wrong every single time. We are telling ourselves the same lies right now. We are different. We have technology. We have the dollar. We are America. But the pattern doesn't care about exceptionalism. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot spend beyond your means forever. You cannot maintain empire without productive capacity. You cannot debase currency without consequences. You cannot avoid stages 6 and 7 once you have completed 1 through 5. The sequence is locked in. The only question is timing. Maybe 10 years. Maybe 5. Maybe less. But the pattern says collapse is coming. And when it comes, it won't be gradual. A currency crisis triggers a debt. Crisis triggers a political crisis. Overnight, the superpower becomes a cautionary tale. Since 2020, we have accelerated every stage. Printed more money, increased debt, extended military commitments, hollowed out production, fractured society. We are not walking down this path anymore. We are sprinting. Maybe we will find a way out. Maybe America will do what Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union couldn't. Maybe this time really is different, but the pattern says otherwise. The math says otherwise. And history, which has watched empires die the same way over and over, says we are about to learn this lesson the hard way. The answers aren't hiding in the future. They are written in the past, and I will show you where to look.